Welcome to the Prime People Podcast. Today, you're in for a treat. One of my oldest friends online, Chelsea Peitz, an absolute killer when it comes to all things social media, is going to be breaking down the blueprint for social media in 2023 and beyond. We're also going to share a couple secrets near the end of the episode of how you can connect with Chelsea yourself. We were laughing and joking actually right before we started about how I've never met Chelsea in person, but we go way back to the Snapchat days. So Chelsea, how are you doing?
Thanks for having me on the show. And when you said that, I said, Justin, we've met before. And then I realized, oh, wait, you're right. We haven't, but we have known each other for years through the socials, which I think it's safe to say probably both of the majority of us have the widest relationships with people that we haven't actually met in the physical world. So it's not uncommon. And now people don't even bat an eye when I'm like, oh yeah, this is my friend from Instagram. This is my friend from Snapchat. So it's nice to actually be in front of you live and be able to be here on the show.
Well, very rarely have we had repeat guests on. Chelsea wrote an amazing book called What to Post. That's back there. I'm going to buy one of my agents a copy of it after this. But is one of those people that she's an actual practitioner. I think Chelsea, one of the reasons why, if you text me at any point in time, you need a connection, you want, collaboration in any way, I don't even hesitate. Is there's a lot of different types of people out there. Some that I find come in and out of different ecosystems, and they usually want something. And then there's people that have eternal curiosity and they're trying to figure stuff out. They go, they do the thing, they bring it back to the tribe, and then they go and find more things. Then they try those things. Then they bring that back to the tribe. And I've watched you do that. Like, we all started out doing all of our little things on Snapchat. You've been on massive stages. You've now launched so many partnerships and programs. For the people that don't know you as well as I do, give us like a 30,000 foot view of who you are today.
Well, I think if you want to know who I am today, you have to know where I started. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you a whole history of Chelsea. I'm just going to say I've been in the real estate industry for 23 years, and I got licensed 23 years ago before social media existed. And my broker asked me the same thing every single day. And the question was, how many people did you talk to today? How many relationships did you nurture? And that long ago, I was like, wow, it was a busy day. 4 people. I was able to see and talk to 4 people. And we had to drive somewhere. We had to have coffee. We had to have a phone that you actually answered. And so what's not different about using technology to be human is that it is just simply another way to connect with other human beings at scale. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, specifically with video. But I started as a real estate agent. I left full-time real estate in 2008, which was an interesting year, if any of you remember that. But I wanted to still stay in it. And I didn't realize at the time that my true calling in life was to be a teacher. I am a student, like you said. I appreciate that because that is truly me at the fabric and DNA of me as a human being. I am an eternal student, and I love to share everything that I learn, and I'm very passionate about basically just giving it all away. And I feel that the more that I can give, the more that eventually it will come back to me, and I'm sure double. So I love to do that. I love to share. I have spoken on a lot of stages. I've written a couple of books. I have a podcast. And I think my most important role, of course, is mom to my son. And I'm a rescue dog owner. And my husband and I are celebrating our 19th anniversary in a week and a half. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that so much. And you do know that job opening for your son is always around. He's like the most photogenic kid of all time, if you've ever seen this kid on social.
He is definitely, I will have him trained up and I'll send him your way because he is going to keep you in your office very entertained.
Well, I'm sure him and my daughter could take over the world.
I agree for sure.
How old is your son now?
Believe it or not, he just turned 10. Wow. And I know that everybody who I know on social still thinks of him as like a little 2 or 3 year old, because that's what happens. That's what happens when we're connecting with actual human beings and being able to peek into their lives in whatever form or fashion or capacity that they are willing to share it. is you have this magical moment of being able to follow someone's journey. And a lot of the people listening and watching right now are like, I don't have a journey to share. I haven't climbed Mount Everest. I didn't have anything, big or impactful. I don't have a story to tell. And or maybe I'm new at whatever I'm doing. Maybe I'm new to an area, a type of product, and or maybe I'm a new agent and I'm a little bit nervous about making content because who am I? I'm not an expert yet. And there's something really beautiful about normalizing not having all the answers and not being an expert and taking people along with you on the journey, because we want to root for each other and we want to watch you grow. And that's what you said without saying it, Justin. You're like, gosh, I
Yeah.
remember before you wrote the book, I remember watching you write the book. And now I'm seeing you doing all of these things and like reaching your dreams. And wow, it is so cool to be able to go through that with you. And so that's why I also love the power of social media and video to do that too. And I think a lot of people are really apprehensive about, can I create a brand? Do I have a brand? What is my story? Am I a character that people actually want to stay for and root for? Because we don't think of ourselves like that. We're too close to our own story and we live in our minds and bodies all day and we feel like, oh my gosh, this is boring. I have nothing to share. I have nothing new. It's all the same old thing. Nobody cares about interest rates or market updates, or how could I possibly make that interesting? And how do I tell people that I can help them with their real estate needs without constantly telling them that I'm in real estate and I can help them? So all of these limiting beliefs swirling around in our brains at all times. So we'll hopefully give you some strategies to overcome those today.
Yeah, we're going to map out that blueprint 100%, but you touched on so many good points. The first one being, we've never met in person, but I know you've supported in things that I've done that I've asked for help with without even thinking twice about it, because of the fact that we've known each other for so long, and you know who I am through the content that I post. And even though we don't talk every week, you probably have more an idea of what's actually going on in my life than a lot of people that I went to high school with. And the same thing vice versa. Like, I am 100% bought in because I've seen who you are as a real human being through the content that you post. I think where a lot of people get it wrong, especially in the last 5 years, is the people that build fake accounts with a fake image of who they are and they can't sustain it. They feel burnt out because they're chasing the image of somebody else. And I think what you just highlighted is like, no, like, you're interesting. Like, let's get rid of the word brand. Just how do you be a person on social media and stop thinking that you're not interesting? And let's start pulling those pieces out, Chelsea. Like, when you have somebody brand new, now that you're a black belt at this and a white belt walks into the gym, how do you make them feel comfortable in this world that's really, really scary?
Yeah, and you're right. I do agree that it is really, really scary. It's wonderful and also scary. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, intimidated, awkward, nervous, I'm here to tell you that that is a uniquely human experience. And if you weren't, I would probably be a little bit wondering why. And the reason I say that, my background's actually in psychology. I was going to be a therapist, but I'm highly emotional and empathic. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't be crying in every one of my sessions. So I ended up doing something completely different, but I've always had a passion for brains, neuroscience, and human behavior. And so that will come through in a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, because industry becomes irrelevant because human behavior isn't, and how our behavior is being trained and how we're using technology as humans. And one of the things that comes up again and again and again, and I have worked with tens of thousands of real estate and mortgage humans, and it doesn't matter how long they've been in the industry, how long they've been making content, if they have started making videos, if they hadn't made videos at all, the same theme comes up as far as the challenge. Like, why are you frustrated with social media? And so I've pinpointed exactly why you're frustrated with social media, or why you look at somebody else and you're like, why is it working for them?
Mhm.
And it's not working for me. Justin, I'm posting. You told me to post regularly. I'm doing that. You told me to make videos. I'm doing that, but just something isn't resonating.
Sure.
And the frustration point almost always happens when you're showing up online in a different way that you would never show up offline. Because for many, many years, we've had this idea of social media is this, real life is this, online is this, offline is this. And you're right, it is. Digital is not the same as being in the physical, right? And this was a keynote that used to be pretty hard for me to book until we had the pandemic. And then everybody realized, wow, I am going to be using FaceTime and Teams and Zoom and my phone to connect with human beings. And many of us, if not all of us, shared happy hours and birthdays and holidays with family and friends through a device. And none of us would say, when I told my parents that I miss them and that I love them, that that's not real. Of course it is. It's different. It's not what I would like. I would prefer to be there in person. But the beautiful thing is our brain has no idea if it's looking at a face through a screen or if I'm right across from you. So what happens is we have this ability to accelerate familiarity and trust by showing our face. But what happens is we start to feel like, oh, but I don't have to show up here because it's social media. And we're doing things we would never do in real life. And I'll give you a quick example. Of course, everyone, you know this one. I'm not even going to say that we don't like how we look on camera because I feel like that's so obvious. Like everybody feels that way. But like, let's just go with the voice. Okay. Nobody likes hearing their voice on a recording. And so it's like that cringe, that, oh. And so we tell ourselves, I don't like how I look. I'm not gonna post a video. Okay. But you wouldn't do that in the offline world. So like, here's an example. What if you and I went to Starbucks today and we're, sitting there having our coffee and I'm like, okay, Justin, I have been reading the headlines. I don't know. It seems like is now really a good time to, I'm not really sure. What do you think? What's your opinion? And instead of you actually voicing your expertise and your authority and talking to someone as you know you would if they were sitting across from you asking that, you're furiously writing on a notepad. And you silently slide it across the table. And on it, it's like, hey, Chelsea, would love to answer this question out loud, but my voice, I've heard it on video. It's cringe. Can you just talk and I'll write? No, we would not do that, right? Not showing your face is like turning your chair at a meeting while I'm talking. We wouldn't do that. So we sort of have this misalignment of I can show up completely differently and do things that I would never do if I was actually in front of the person. So the first place is always ask yourself, what would I do if this person was literally in front of me? So those are a lot of mind blocks that we have where people are like, I don't know what to say. Okay, so you're telling me that if you were standing right in front of me and somebody said, so what do you do? You would like look for a script, right? But these are things that we tell ourselves, and working through them is at the core that human experience of, as a human being, to survive and thrive, I need to feel affirmed and belong and loved. And we all do. We can survive. We may not thrive if we don't have that love. And the idea of putting ourselves out to the world is very vulnerable, because what if they don't agree with my perspective? What if they don't like me? What if they're thinking something not very nice? What if they say something not very nice? And so what I really do, because most people think I diagnose and help social media problems, which I do, but what I really do is I don't help humans with real estate problems. I help realtors with human problems, and how you can show up in a world where you're like, I don't know what you mean about this like authentic thing. Like, I'm not an oversharer. And so that's really the core of why we have difficulty creating content with us in it, and especially our face and our voice. And if you're feeling that way, welcome. You are a human, and I would expect you to feel that way. So then we go into, all right, how do we get past it? And, how can I have some tools? Because you don't want to be like me. I didn't watch my videos for 5 years. I did not watch myself back once. And you know what? I'm also giving you permission if you need to do that, because I knew I would not make another video. I would pick it apart and I just would say, forget it. I don't want to do it. So I literally sweat through every video and I never watched it back. And imagine how much better I could have gotten if I watched myself back. And so there's all different ways to do it, but gosh, I wish I would have had some tactical tools in the beginning, so I didn't have to feel like every single video I was making was such an emotional, anxiety-ridden experience.
You did get very natural very quickly, I think, just by repetition and not watching videos. Like, I could say the exact same thing. I think a lot of people would look at yourself and me and say the same thing, right? Like, well, it's so easy for you. It just seems so natural. And I remember in the beginning when I was doing the closers daily, madness. Like I look at those videos now, it's just chaotic. They're all over the place. There's no through line of content branding or any thoughtfulness into it. It was just, I got to do as much as I can until I get comfortable. I do think that there's a benefit to doing volume to get comfortable on camera, but knowing what you know now, what tools would you give young Chelsea to approach it in a more systematic way than maybe the way both of us did it?
And, I'm sort of one of those brains that needs, we talk a lot about these days, Chat GPT and AI, and I love those tools because it gives me a place to start. And so once I have a place to start, then my brain turns on. So I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but looking at a blank anything, board, piece of paper, we're like, okay, let's just create content. And you're like, oh, it's overwhelming. So perhaps these will be some great places to start. And I'm going to give 3 total strategies that basically I think are the only videos. Like if you just made these 3 different types of videos, you'd have a solid strategy. It doesn't need to be complicated. It works on every platform. So this is not just one platform specific. It doesn't matter if you've never done video or if you're currently doing video, it's going to work. And there's a very specific way and I guess I could say order that I would recommend this in, which is why I'm going to start with 1 and go to 3. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I like this order. And I use it a lot with coaching. So the first one is we need to reduce your content stress, the anxiety of, oh, I'm going to be on video. I have to have a script. I need to come off as this, what you said, persona, because quite frankly, we do believe that we have to show up as a different variation, as a better variation of ourselves to be taken seriously, to be an expert, to be an authority, that it has to be, quote, professional, quote, polished, quote, edited. And, that's oftentimes because we see other people that we respect and admire that have done the work and are more comfortable. And, we're comparing ourselves to those people and think that I have to be like that. So the first step is we've got to eliminate your stress. We have to eliminate your excuses, because I'm an excuse person. You may not know this about me, but if there's an excuse to be had, I will make it. And it's what happens is you're like, oh no, I don't have time to write a script. I don't have my lights. I don't have my editing thing. I don't have my videographer. Yeah.
It's like going to the gym and forgetting your headphones, right?
I'm not working out. And then you turn right back around. That's me. How dare you? That is so rude. You knew
everybody watching this does that, I'm
sure. So we got to eliminate the excuses, and the excuses are around usually equipment and time, and the mindset that we have to have things a certain way for us to create. And this is hard for me because I'm one of those people. So we're just going to take your phone. Everything is going to be done on your phone, and we're not going to use any editing. I know, scary. We're not going to use scripts. We're not going to use editing. Don't worry. You'll see where I'm going with this. The idea is you have everything you need. You don't need to have a designated place to do the thing. And it only takes a few seconds. So we want to eliminate those excuses. We want to eliminate the stress around creating content for the world. And the most important thing is the reason we get that ick factor, that cringe when we kind of see ourselves on video is typically because there's a misalignment. And the misalignment happens when the person that you're watching on that recording, is you, but it's just a little bit off. There's just something about it and you can't quite put your finger on it. And let me tell you exactly what it is. When you're memorizing something, right? And I write scripts. Sometimes I freestyle and oftentimes I need to get my thoughts out, and I like to write a script. But what happens when you're memorizing something is a different part of your brain is activated, and you are thinking so hard about what you don't want to miss point 2 and 3 and 4 that your eye contact changes a little bit. You can tell that you're thinking about, okay, don't forget number 3. What was it? You're getting a little bit stressed. Your warmth cues dull in your face. You're not smiling. You're not emoting. You're not moving, because we move when we talk, right? I use my hands all the time. And so we sort of get this version of this. Here's 3 things that you need to know about the market and you're like, okay, that's me, but it doesn't quite feel like me. And you're like, oh no, it's me. There's something wrong with me. And then that gets into our head and we're just like, oh, that was terrible. And listen, we don't want to do things again that don't feel great. Sure. So if you're trying to memorize something, if you're reading a teleprompter, and all of these are excellent tools and require skill and practice. we usually can also tell there's something a little bit off because we don't write like we talk. And so we know that, like, okay, we wouldn't probably say that word. I'd say that if I was writing it. And so that can be a little bit of a reason there's a misalignment there. Also, if you're trying to copy and paste the personality or perspective of another realtor you're following in your feed, that's always going to do it. You're not going to see the real you. And so those misalignments give us the ick factor, and we say, I don't think I want to do this again. So we got to fix that. So how do we do it? So you're going to take your phone. Okay, got your phone. You're gonna make a short little video. Okay, and I call this strategy very simply, if you're taking notes, it's called the 1-to-1 video strategy. 1-to-1, one video for one human being, one video for one specific human being. So you're gonna be my example, Justin. Okay,
let's rock and roll.
So here's the thing: we have to get you not thinking about yourself on camera. We have to get you out of what am I going to say next? Because a lot of times this limiting belief is like, I just don't know what to say. When you know who you're talking to, you know exactly what to say. And so we need something that is going to help you build that camera confidence and make that alignment between, oh yeah, that's me. And I can do this. And so we also need to build the habit. So what we're going to do is you're going to pick whatever social media platform you love. I'm going to pick Instagram for this example. Every social media platform has some kind of one-to-one messaging system. So Facebook calls it Messenger, Instagram, it's direct message. So you get the drill, right? So we're going to keep this simple. We're not going to do multiple steps because excuses. We're literally going to go right into a message. So I'm going to pretend that I'm going to send Justin a message, and it's going to just be for him, which means I'm going to say his name. Okay, I'm going to say his name. I'm going to say something specific about Justin. And what I want you to do is I want you to think of one person that you already like, know, and trust. And now a lot of people are like, yeah, but I have a lot of friends. Like, I don't know, I feel like I like, know, and trust them. Okay, here's my definition of who I'm going to feel comfortable making a video for. Okay, this is somebody, if I ran into them at Target or some store, I would stop. I would say hello and know their first name. Like, this is somebody that I know, okay? So again, we're working on reducing stress. You're going to make one video for one human being you already like, know, and trust. They're the only person that's going to see it. We're not putting this out to the algorithm. We're not putting it out to the world. I'm going to send you a video. So what am I saying in this video? I want you to think of it like a visual Hallmark card, okay? Like something nice and human. Happy birthday, happy anniversary. Hey, thank you. I'm grateful for you. Or I was thinking of you. I hope all is well. Like just something nice and human. So let's just keep it super simple. Let's pretend it's your birthday. So now I've got my phone, okay? Maybe I'm walking my dog outside, because this is how you could literally do this while you're walking your dog. I've got my phone. I'm going to Instagram. I know my person in my head. I know it's your birthday. Okay. I'm going to go to the inbox. I'm going to go to the message. I'm typing in your name. There is a new message ready to go to you. And guess what? Every messaging platform has the ability to send a video message. So I can just click on the little video, the camera icon, and I'm going to hold it up, and I'm walking my dogs. Let's pretend. And I'm like, Justin, oh my gosh, it is your birthday, friend. I'm so excited. And the dogs are saying happy birthday too. They're excited. Just wanted to let you know. Hope you have the best day ever. Okay, that probably took me like 7 seconds, right? Here's what happens. I'm not thinking about how I look, how I sound, what I'm saying. I'm actually thinking about the human being that I'm sending this nice message to. And then when I watch that video back, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, am I smiling? Yeah, because you really can't say something nice to someone without smiling, especially happy birthday, right? And then you notice that your tone and it's modulating up and down, and your voice sounds like you, and your whole body language feels like you, right? So you've created this simple, easy little video. And now here's the really cool part. When I make something nice for someone else, it makes me feel good. And when they get that, it makes them feel good. And now we're both in this like positive feedback loop of that was really nice, right? And so the critical key here, though, is I'm sending it in a direct message. I love email, like BombBomb. I love those tools. I love text messages. But here's the key. I want you to stop stressing about content. I want your content in the future to get seen by the right people more often and without you having to make more. So what happens when you direct message someone is the algorithm says, whoa, wait a minute. They just were talking in the direct messages. So we assume we're going to use this as a data point, and we're going to make sure now that when Chelsea posts next week, a feed post that has nothing to do with you specifically, that you see it, because now it's training your algorithm. So not only are you training your confidence, you're doing something nice for your community, you're also training the algorithm. Because if I sent that video to you in a text message, you'd be like, oh, that was nice. Thanks. Thanks for the birthday wishes. And then what happens? Do you get a text to your phone when I post on Instagram in the feed? It's not texting you and saying, hey, Chelsea just posted, you should go look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea here is build a habit, eliminate the excuses, start that positive feedback loop in your mind, get yourself aligned with the real you, get comfortable not using a script, and also train your algorithm so that when I do post something next week that goes to more people or all of my community, you're going to see it. And then you have this omnipresence where people are like, oh my gosh, I feel like I see you everywhere. I get your email newsletter. I see you in the feed. I'm watching your stories. I see you in the notifications. You're getting free repeat branding because you're supporting my content, which is a really awesome, nice thing to do. So it's a really, really solid strategy, no matter where you're at in your video or content spectrum. And to be honest, if you're rocking and rolling on videos in the feed, you might want to go back and do some more of this, because this is really where you're going to have more conversions, is when you create more of those connections and relationships. I personally feel that the socials don't need our content. They need our conversations and connections, because we love that. That's how we create and connect with people. But like, let's be honest, they're a for-profit company. So the more people I can bring back and keep on the platform, the more money that they can make. So it's really where that comes in. But I love it because I can scale humanity, in a few seconds a day. And I love that one-to-one video strategy.
Yeah, it's super key. I mean, there's a nugget you shared in there that I want to make sure it doesn't get glossed over. And it's actually a strategy that I still use to this day, where if I'm going to text message somebody that I want in my ecosystem, quite often I should go out of my way to go to Instagram and have that conversation in Instagram, because I found, because I was such a scattergun of content early on, it took me a good 5 years to really dial that in and clean up my feed. And I did the same thing on Facebook. I do the same thing on Twitter. And it's interesting. Every ecosystem I have, vastly different group of people. And the content I'm posting and the way that I converse there, it's still me, but the different personalities and the facets of me and the audiences are all completely unique. And Instagram specifically, I literally was DMing a videographer about another friend of ours, a mutual friend creator in the city. And that is leading to us now realizing we live in the same area and there's probably collaboration to happen in the future. And if he needs real estate, probably I'm going to be on his radar because I'm in that space. And you're demystifying the I have to create content to saying, like, you just need to be a human being and understand that this is no different than walking into a coffee shop and buying a cup of coffee and seeing Uncle Jimmy and saying, Uncle Jimmy, I only see you once a year at a family reunion. So nice to catch up and have that conversation, but in a way that humanizes it, versus where I think a lot of things that I saw on social over the last couple of years that I found didn't track to creating that same human connection was people thinking that they needed to treat their followers like a line item on an expense sheet. And how do I monetize these people? And how do I get them to do this? Right? Because people are smart. Like, you're on the other end of the phone, as am I. So when somebody does that to me, they lose my trust like that. And all of a sudden they're wondering why they're struggling to build an actual ecosystem or community. Right?
Well, and the thing of it is it takes time. It's manual. Like, being human is unscalable. And there are things that I can't do now that I was able to do with a much smaller community. And I miss that, to be honest. Yeah. So there's actually a beauty in having a more manageable, smaller ecosystem so that you can actually really deeply connect with those people. At some point, with growth, you can't do all the things that you used to do, because I'm not a big believer in automating everything. I love automation. I love systems and efficiency. And this strategy specifically is not one that I recommend to be efficient with or automate, meaning it's not a cheat code to go to like Facebook and look at the birthdays that week and make one video that you're going to send to 15 people. And you're like, hey, friend, happy birthday. Because like, guys, that's for us. That's not for them. That's for us to be like, got my social media done. It only took me 30 seconds and I, sent it out to 30 people. And it's about doing some of the unscalable things. And one of the unscalable things is sharing your personality and perspective in your content as well. And, especially in a different or a changing market, like that is the best time for you to continue to show up consistently because you are the only you. And I know we have a limiting belief that people don't care about what we are specifically doing. Or my favorite quote, you've heard me say this a million times, from Felicity and Nora, is about relatability. And it says, people come for the plot and they stay for the character. And the challenge is many of us feel like we're not a character worth staying for, that we have no story to share, that's nothing exciting about what we do. And at the core of it, that is what attracts us to want to stick around, is the actual human behind the product or the brand, and connecting with that person on what seems like very mundane, boring content a lot of the time. So it's almost the opposite of what we think we should be doing. And so, yeah, we get in our head a lot, which is the hard part about creating content.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to when the world is screaming at us that now YouTube Shorts is a thing and make sure you're on TikTok and do this on Facebook and so on and so forth. Strategically, like, I understand back in the day, I don't know if you still do it, I used to map out a crazy content calendar of like, here's what I want to do in a year and in a quarter, in a month, in a week, in a day. And here's all my platforms. And here's how I'm going to systematically post on different platforms on different days. Now I simplify it all. I know exactly what I'm doing, how I communicate on stories versus reels. And it's a lot less time consuming. Where are you at with content calendars and strategy?
I don't have a content calendar. I never have, which really shocks people, but there's a lesson here. Okay. And the lesson is that you can create what works for you. Just because it works for someone else and this person has expertise and authority doesn't mean that it's going to work for you in the exact same way. Taking different elements, trying things. You have to try things. Have I tried content calendars? Absolutely. Have I tried designating one day a month? Yes. One day a week? Yes. 1 hour a day? Absolutely. Have I tried all the systems? Yes. And what I have found works for me is a little bit of a hybrid. And I have to honor my mental and emotional health because I know I'm an overthinker and a perfectionist, and I know I will burn out. And for me, it has to be sustainable. And I also have to have a little bit of joy. Has to bring me some joy. If I am miserable doing it, I'm not going to want to do it. And guess what? I don't love posting in the feed. I don't love making reels. I love making stories. And so I spend the majority of my time making stories and talking to people. And I get 99% of my business through stories. But I don't not ever post anything in the feed. I just do something like once or twice a week because I know that's sustainable for me. So you have to know yourself. You have to know what's going to work. And yes, you have to test things out. If you've never made a content calendar, how can you say that it's not going to work for you? And I will say that batching content or creating multiple pieces of content at once, a way better plan. I would like to stay more consistent with that because there's weeks that you're on vacation or you're not feeling well or you're just not in the mood. And it's nice to have that library of content to go to. So you're not constantly feeling like you're always making content, because remember, we are doing other things than making content, living life, being a parent, selling houses, whatever it is that you're doing. And so it can feel very overwhelming. And I'm also not on all the platforms. I have an account on all the platforms. I have found one, which is Instagram. I love it. I do that there. And I would recommend repurposing. You mentioned YouTube Shorts. You can put your reels there too. But what works for someone else, like, you will not get punished because you're not doing the same strategy as someone else. Will they grow faster? Maybe, probably, sure. Will they love it? Does it bring them joy? Does it fuel them to get up and make content every day? Awesome. I love that for them. It doesn't mean that you have to do it that way.
Yeah.
I don't post every day, and I never have, and I never will. And I just know myself. So you have to know what's going to work for you. And this is your permission to like lean into what brings you joy. If you love stories, great, do that more. If you love posting in the feed and making graphics, have at it. And know that there are other things that you know, will have to bring in to that as well. But you have the permission to have a great time doing what you're doing. Like, that sounds amazing, right? And a lot of times we feel like, oh, it's work and we shouldn't be having a good time. And if I'm doing something wrong, if I'm enjoying it. But it should bring you some joy to create. And if it's not, then perhaps we need to try a different way of doing it.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. I mean, because we've known each other for so long, I've shared with you, other friends of mine, and I've looked to other people that are in my community as counselors of where I see myself in the industry, right? And a lot of the content I've shared recently over the last 8 months is about how I don't want to be a coach or a speaker because that doesn't bring me joy. I actually love having a camera in my hand. I'm a Canon shooter. I love doing street photography. I never told people I did that. I like editing videos. I like working with my production team on creating documentaries. Cinematography is really where my heart is at. I happen to be in an industry that lets me do that and sell some of the most beautiful real estate on the planet. But it took me nearly a decade to figure that out, where before I thought I needed to be on all the stages and all the places. And it's super interesting because as I share that with people now, I'm like, I get invites to tons of speaking things. If you and Giselle or you and your people call me and like, hey, Justin, I need you, I'm there. And I can speak to what I know because I know it. And I'll be there for you because you are an amazing coach and a speaker, and you have an amazing aptitude for your skill set. But I also know myself. And if I was speaking at 10 events a year, I wouldn't be fly fishing, spending time with my wife and daughter and doing the other things that bring me joy. And I just wanted to point that out as such a contrast, where it doesn't make me any less of a person to identify that and say, I'm putting big walls around this. And if you see me on stage with Chelsea, you know she's the real deal. It actually brings more authority and more cosign to the relationship, where I've seen other people who chase that as if once they get that, then the world is finally going to say, congratulations, Justin, now you've made it. When in reality, you and I both know, it doesn't matter if you get to 10K, 100K, or 1 million followers, nobody's going to call you and be like, congratulations, Chelsea, you finally did it, right? And I think that's where you're really creating a pattern break for people to understand that it's not about the latent indicators of success, the vanity metrics, the followers, the views. It's about just finding that joy in themselves.
And I think what you also are showcasing in sharing that is that there's not one better way to make content. So for you, you appreciate the cinematic element of it. Like, it just brings you joy to like, oh, what if we did this angle and this? I mean, that sounds horrible to me. Like, that sounds terrible. Like, that is the furthest thing from what I want to do. And I just make content on my phone, and sometimes in my closet, sometimes here, sometimes out and about. And people have said to me, well, you're a video coach. Like, why haven't you upped the production on your videos? And like, because one, it doesn't bring me joy. Two, it's who I am and how I want to do it for a very specific reason. And three, I'm attracting camera shy individuals who are having a lot of limiting beliefs around a lot of things. And the fact that I'm showing up this way perhaps might inspire them that you don't need all of those things. So you can have your different ways of doing things. And yes, you and I figured out what we like after trying all the things. Like, I've tried the edited ones and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I spend 3 hours editing this reel, like, what am I doing? So yeah, you've got to try different things. And I don't think you can really figure out that self-awareness of what works for you if you don't try the things. And I know that that might feel like a waste of time, but until you went and started talking on stages and you realize this isn't for me, and vice versa, like, I love it. And so you have to have those non-negotiables and know what they are. And oftentimes we get to a breaking point we get so frustrated and then it becomes a non-negotiable. And we're like, forget this, I'm never going to do it again. And wouldn't it be nice if like you could do that, before you get to that point? And so many of us think, oh, I don't have the right to do that or set these non-negotiables. And so now it's so freeing
Sure.
to have a non-negotiable. And to your point, people are like on board. They're like, absolutely. Like, I appreciate the fact that you told me that you don't do anything after 2 p.m. because you want to be home for dinner and blah, blah, blah. And if you have to fly, like, people appreciate that. And they're like, I respect that. Like, this is your non-negotiable. I think the challenge is when you can't articulate why. I can tell you exactly why. I will not take a specific deal because if it's family related, my priority is the family and what we're doing. And so that's the most important thing to me. And I'm able to articulate that because I really know why I'm setting that non-negotiable. And I think knowing the why is really important. So, yeah, all of that to say, you can have whatever style works for you. And you do have to try a few things. You got to try the content calendar to know that it's not for you, and it is not for me. I just write notes down. I literally have notes on my phone, and I prefer notes in a notebook.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I will write down ideas, and I'll go to sit down and record them. And oftentimes, I record different things than I wrote down.
Sure.
It's almost like the taking it out of my head freed up something that made me a little bit more creative. So for me, I have to put it outside of my head and have it in a place that's tactile that I can look at, and it's almost like a safety blanket. Like, I just carry it around with me, and
I
I'm like,
love
why
that.
am I taking this on my vacation? I'm like, oh, what if I get an idea?
Just in case.
Just in case. So
I
yeah.
love that. I'll give you an insight into something I started doing recently. It was actually Alex Hermosi that dropped this tip. And he's like, use your Twitter feed as an idea bank because you can actually
Mm.
try out ideas and threads and then see how people react to it. So quite often when I shoot content, I actually just open my Twitter. Anybody watching this, if you go to my Twitter, you get access to tell me what videos to shoot. I can just rip through my tweets and just grab one. And then that's the topic that I'm talking about. And if I'm authentically myself on Twitter and speaking about stuff I'm actually an expert on, usually translates to content. And then one other point of clarity, I love speaking on stages. There's nothing that fires me up more than actually being on stage and getting a room hyped to find really the best version of themselves. But where I think there's no absolutes is when I think about it, a lot of people in my industry, and you're not an agent, you're somebody that is really an expert at branding, media, marketing. At this point in your career, you've consulted with multinational, anyways, high level companies. But people in my industry, typically broker owners, are doing it because they want to recruit, or they are selling some type of course that people are going to go to so that they can get into their system so that they could eventually recruit them. And where I found we really are different in our industry, we're not recruiting. Like, we're not somebody that's worried about agent count, office count. That's not what Prime is. Prime is a company that happens to specialize in real estate. So the parameters I've put around it were, I'm happy to come speak to my actual expertise and the fact that I'm an agent in production. And it's fascinating because the invites and the stages that I am on, usually there's a depth to that community and those people. And I'm just very selective. And it's what you said earlier. The more selective you are about the way you show up and the people you engage with, the more results you get. Like, it's fascinating to see some of the phone calls and some of the people that I'm in alignment with now, just because I put up parameters around where I'm willing to stick to my principles and where I'm willing to bend them. Right. So I think people shouldn't be scared about doing what's comfortable for them. If they love going out networking, partying, do that. If you want to be in bed at 9 o'clock every night and FaceTime your kiddo, you can do that too. There's no absolutes in this business, right?
Yeah, I agree. I love that. Yeah. So know what you want to do and what you don't want to do. I think more importantly, what you don't want to do. And
Yeah,
don't
for
be
sure.
afraid to put those in place, because it might feel restrictive at the beginning. Or what if I miss out on something, or I need everything I can get right now with every single client. And it is counterintuitive, but the more specific you are with saying, I don't think I'm the right fit for you,
Sure.
you will absolutely attract more of what you do want. And so it's scary at first to say, oh my gosh, well, like for me, I'm like, oh, should I have taken that speaking thing? And I'm like, no, wait, what are my non-negotiables? And it always ends up being something that where I am really attracting the right person and the right fit for me.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Well, I love that you're in our ecosystem. I would encourage everybody to go follow Chelsea. I know you're working on something pretty neat. Can you give me the breakdown of what the real estate accelerator actually is?
Yeah. So another friend of the show, Giselle Ugardi, who is a dear friend and my co-coach on this project. Actually, it's her brainchild. She so kindly invited me to join her on this journey, and it's called Real Estate Content Accelerator, and it is a 5-week live training course. It's a group course, and it's very different than what is out in our ecosystem in our world, because it's not just social media. We have all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
But we are truly coaching on mindset, limiting beliefs, accountability, helping you define and having that self-awareness, which is so hard to do for ourselves,
Mhm.
around what makes you uniquely qualified to help people. It's likely because at one time you were like that person, right? Or have those fears, and how do we articulate, what makes you different, who you are, and specifically using video to do that. So it's a 5-week course. We do one class a week, and we also throw in a couple bonus calls, and we're just wrapping up the first one from 2023, and it was just absolutely like life-changing for us. I certainly hope it was for the people that went through it. We have a great Facebook group. Many of the people continue, they say, hey, listen, I just want this forever. And we've got a lot of people that just stay with us for a couple of years. So it's called Real Estate Content Accelerator, and the wait list is open, and the next session is starting in the middle of May. So about a month and a half, and we'll be kicking off again.
Okay. Well, send me the info. I'll get
Yeah.
it over down to the Prime family. Some big shout outs to Tanis. I see a whole bunch of people here. Matt LaMarche is here as always. Olivier
Oh,
Maurice. Olivier Maurice is in Quebec, phenomenal commercial agent. He was actually
nice.
asking, what if they see my crooked teeth on video? Yeah,
Yes.
you can answer that question if you
I'm
want.
going to answer this question because the things that often have given us those feelings of cringe, embarrassment, less than, um, is some people that it's like, I mean, I have an eye that crosses. So I happen to have my eye cross sometimes in videos. And that was I literally went to the doctor because I was like, something is wrong with me.
Sure.
And, I was really kind of worried about that. Some people have nervousness around an accent or around a variety of different things. And so again, the thing is, I think I mentioned this in the beginning, is like the one question is, what would you do in real life? What would you do if that person was at Starbucks with you, right?
Sure.
So the person who is across from you is going to still talk to you, and you're going to connect with them and talk to them. And it's easy for me to sit here and say, embrace those things about ourselves that we don't love. But that's a cliche, and it's hard. And so we have to remember that what we do in real life. And yes, maybe I'm having a bad hair day, or I have something that happened and it's like a rash on my face. Like maybe you would cancel your appointments, but forever, probably
Probably
not.
not.
So I'd say embrace it. It is you, and you are uniquely you. And that's amazing and incredible and connective and human. And I always say that human is professional, because we have this idea that professional has to present in a certain way. And I would assume that everybody watching here wants to work with somebody with empathy, compassion, integrity, all uniquely human. So if you're not sharing that or showing that or talking about that in your content, we won't have that connection. And we all want it. We know that. But for some reason, we get in our heads and say, oh, I have to show up in a specific way, or that's not professional. But human is, in fact, professional, because that's what we want to work with, are those very unique human things. So I
Well,
say, embrace it.
two points to that. I've watched lots of his videos, never noticed that ever. And it's probably something
Yeah.
he knows. It's like a house, right? Like everybody
Yeah,
knows
you
their
wouldn't
own
even,
house
yeah,
better than
no,
anybody else, and nobody notices
totally.
the things they notice. Second
Yeah.
thing is, you have more of a human connection knowing who he is and that he's a commercial broker in Quebec, and him being vulnerable actually now creates an attachment that you wouldn't have had he not
Yes,
shared that vulnerability, right?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's nerve-wracking to get there, but yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's something that, I would embrace. And to your point, what do you do when you watch people? You don't pick them apart. You know, we're just consuming, we're connecting, we're watching, but it's always when it's us, we pick ourselves apart, right? And one thing I always do, one exercise I always tell people too is, all right, let's imagine you had little Justin sitting across from the table, like 7-year-old Justin. And he was like, okay, but big Justin, future Justin, like, I don't know. I don't want to get made fun of. Like, what should I just forget it and not do video ever? And what would you say? Of course, you would be like, are you kidding? You're amazing. You can do this. Who cares what they say? We would never say the things to ourselves that we never say that to, you know, the little young humans or the young versions of ourselves. It's just something happens that we feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not worthy. And we tell ourselves these things. But when we think, my gosh, would you ever tell your child that, or a best friend? No, gosh, no, I never, that would be terrible. Well, why are we saying it to ourselves? Right. So yeah, that's a really, really good question / point. And I'm here to encourage you to embrace it.
Well, I bet you at least 10,000 of your followers came because of your crazy hair videos back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very endearing, right? And you created
Yep.
a connection. And I'd say it's something that once you get used to it and you realize that, you know, it's real people that are on the other side of the phone, everything changes. Chelsea, you know, the very last question I wanted to ask you is, if you had a giant billboard there for everybody in the world to see, what would be your parting message for the Prime Nation?
Okay. My parting message is that I personally believe that there's one thing that's going to determine your success in this year and beyond. And it's how well your content shows people who you really are. And the more that you can share videos that can make a stranger feel like they already know you, you've already won.
Amazing. Thank you very much. If you got any value from this episode, please go follow Chelsea, send her a DM. That way you can get in her algorithm. Check out her real estate agent accelerator course with our good friend, Giselle Ugarte. I'll get her back on for another episode as well. Definitely part of the Prime family. Hit that like, that subscribe button, share this with somebody that you think would appreciate this message, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, Chelsea.